Watching one-chukka, and what I'll do is play one play in regular speed, and then I'll go back and repeat that same play but stop it when I think there's a penalty. So you'll be able to look at it in regular speed and see if you spot any penalties, and then we'll go through and I'll stop it when I think there's a penalty. And I'll be telling you who the penalty is against and which umpire would have been responsible for calling that penalty, and how that penalty affects the umpire's score if they called it wrong or missed it. Okay, so here we go. So here's the first play.
And
Regular
we're going to
time,
have
real
a lineup.
time. Just
They're looking for Cody.
kind of remember if you see anything that you think
thinking
is
about throwing it in, but he wants to get at least one good lineup before we get this checking started. We'll put the timers ready. Ball time. We'll start when the ball goes in. Right down the middle, down to the blue side. Oh, there's four people went for it. Couldn't handle it. Lyric comes up with the ball. Lyric walking around out there, waiting for her chance to get into the end zone. She finds a spot, makes her bounce, captures it nicely. Takes a shot on the ball. She's got to get away from better and Chrissy Rebel. Looking for it, trying to get that horse to move forward. Well, it just wants to go sideways. Takes a shot, chop at her, couldn't take most of it. Lyric is looking to get that horse moving forward, but Prissy is all over, swinging.
So
And she finds a spot open, she takes a shot.
Stop that.
And we're going to have a lineup.
So right there, I think the black number 3 has moved for advantage before the ball's left the umpire's hand, which would be a penalty against the black, and it would have been the far side umpire's responsibility for seeing that and calling it. And I say the far side from the camera, on the umpire that's on the far side of the field from the camera.
Looking for
So that
Cody.
was not dangerous. It had been 5 points.
Thinking about
Here, the number 1 has moved. The black number 1 has moved for advantage by moving to the blue team side. It would have also been the far side umpire's responsibility to see and call. Since he didn't call it, now the blue 2 has moved to the other team side.
one good lineup before
It was not called either.
we
Still
get this
the
checking started.
far side
Put the timers
umpire's
ready.
responsibility.
Ball time. We'll start when the ball goes in. Right down the middle, down to the blue side. Oh, there's four people went for it. Couldn't handle it. Lyric comes up with the ball. Lyric walking around out there, waiting for her chance to get into the end zone. She finds a spot, makes her bounce, captures it nicely. Takes a shot on the ball. She's got to get away from better and Chrissy Rebel. Looking for it, trying to get that horse to move forward. Well, it just wants to go sideways. Chrissy takes a shot, chop at her, couldn't take most of it. Lyric is looking to get that horse moving.
So here, I think the blue player is forward of the black player's horse's shoulder for a backward swing, which would be a penalty against the blue, and it would be the far side umpire's responsibility for seeing it and watching it. And the blue player turns toward the black player and crosses over her without clearance. That would be a crossing penalty, and it would be 10 point if it's not called and it doesn't get called against the umpire, and that would be also the far umpire.
All over, swinging. And she finds a spot open, she takes a shot, puts the ball on
Watch the next play.
Mitch Anderson on the far side, getting ready to throw the ball in. Throws it right down the middle. Wants a wreck to touch it, but nobody catches it. Livy had a shot. Janelle had a shot. Stephanie had a shot. Heather finally comes up with the ball. Heather passes it back to Prissy. A little long, but Prissy comes up with it. She's got amazing racket skills. Livy's lyrics get stopped up by Stephanie Shuttle. Prissy starting to look for her. Heather Shuttle. Oh, puts it way out front. Had a little bit too much stink on that one. And the ball's very close to being out of bounds. It is on the line. And
so now we watch that play.
We're going to have
and I'll
umpire
stop if I think there's something that might be
Mitch Anderson on the far side, getting ready.
Right there, I think the black 3 has moved for advantage. This would be the near side umpire's responsibility for seeing and calling it. It's not dangerous. It would be a 5-point deduction. And these deductions go through as if they start with 100 points in a 4x8, 4-minute, 4 chukkas of 8 minutes game, and they're prorated if the games are longer or shorter.
Throw the ball in, throws it right down the middle. Wants a wreck to touch it, but nobody catches it. Livy had a shot. Janelle had a shot.
So right here, the blue player that's picking up the ball is crossing from the left side of her teammate to the right side without sufficient clearance. That would be a crossing penalty, and the direction hasn't been determined yet. She's just picking up the ball, so it'd be the umpire that is closest to it. If it's in the pack, it'd be on his side of the pack, which would be the near side umpire, would be responsible for seeing and calling that. That's a 10-point deduction for the umpire.
Stephanie had a shot.
And right after the ball carrier moved to the right of her blue player, her own player turns right and crosses in front of her, which is a crossing against the blue, and that time it would be the far side umpire that should have called that. Just to mention why it would be the far side umpire, once the ball carrier picked up the ball, the direction of the play is determined and to be going to the right, and the near side umpire, once the direction is determined to be going to his end, is only responsible for watching the one player that's farthest down the field and any players around that one player. The trailing umpire in this case actually shouldn't be up in front of the pack, but should have been back behind the pack and would have been able to see that very easily.
Heather finally comes up with the ball. Heather passes it back to Prissy. A little long, but Prissy comes up with it. She's got amazing racket skills. Livy's lyrics get stopped up by Stephanie Shuttle. Prissy starts.
So the black 3 might have done some crossing. She was off screen for a little bit while she cut back and forth from the blue 1, but this time she's on the screen when she is crossing over from the right side of the 1 to the left side of the 1 without clearance, which would have been a penalty against the black. It's a crossing penalty, so it was not called. It's the responsibility of the near side umpire because those are the player that's farthest down the field, and it would be a 10-point deduction for that umpire.
Trying to look for her. Heather shot.
And then the black number 3 crosses again without clearance from the left to the right of the blue player. Once again, it'd be the near side umpire. It's a crossing penalty. It'd be 10-point deduction against the umpire.
Oh, puts it way out front. Had a little bit too much.
And right here, the blue player crossed the black player. The black player had been continuing to go straight, and the blue player got in front of the black player and then made her horse turn on the front end and stick his butt out in front of, which crossed the black player. That would have been the near side umpire also that should have seen and called that.
On that one, and the ball's very close to being out of bounds. It is on the line.
And here, this penalty was called. It is the blue player stepping out of bounds, and it was called appropriately by the trailing umpire. When the ball goes into the end zone, the trailing umpire is responsible for watching that left sideline, and so he be back here up in midfield, but on the sideline or closest enough to the sideline that he can look down it and tell when the player steps over. But this one was called, so there's no deduction against the umpires.
And oh, she picks it up, but she steps on the line. Heather. And Livy brings the ball out into the end zone. Heather had a shot at her racket. Livy takes a nice 10-yard exit bounce. Comes up with it. Stephanie's looking to give her some wood. Livy turns away from pressure nicely. Lyric's out here all by herself. Her teammate's getting double teamed pretty hard. And she manages to get away from Heather. Stephanie's going to have a shot at getting up on her. Livy pushes her too off the field, waiting for Lyric to get a little thing. Brittany gives Lyric a nice
Okay, now we'll watch that play and stop it when I think there's a problem. Here is a problem. It's nothing that I count off for, but the far side umpire is marking the spot for the black team who is coming towards the left of the screen, and that umpire really needs to be in front of the pack, and so the trailing umpire should almost always mark the penalties. I don't count off for that, but it's something that the umpires should do.
And Livy brings the ball out into the end zone. Heather had a shot at her racket. Livy takes a nice 10-yard exit bounce. Comes up with it.
Right here, the black player turned directly in front of the blue player coming up from behind, which would have been a crossing penalty against the black team, and it would have been, and it was not called, it would have been the trailing umpire's responsibility for calling it, because the trailing umpire, because those players were not the player farthest down the field or the one next to it, and the trailing umpire, if the play is going to the left, of course, would be the near side umpire in this case. Just that the far side umpire should be way up in front of the play instead of trailing behind it.
Stephanie's looking to give her some wood. Livy turns away from pressure nicely. Lyric's out here all by herself. Her teammate's getting double teamed pretty hard.
Okay, there, the player in the middle carrying the ball just pulled across the back of a blue player. Be a penalty against the black, and it should have been the trailing umpire or the near side umpire that should have called that.
And she manages to get away from Heather. Stephanie's going to have a shot at getting up on her. Livy pushes her too off the field, waiting for Lyric to get a little thing.
So here, after the black, I think it's the black 3, releases the ball, she turns left in front of the blue 2 without clearance, crossing. So the black player crossed the blue player, and that was also not the players farthest down the field, so that would have been a near side umpire that should have called that also.
Chrissy gives very good nice over there.
So here the blue player is turning toward the black player without clearance. Be a crossing call against the blue, and it would be the far side umpire that should have called that. And then here she crosses again without clearance. Another penalty should have been called against the blue crossing penalty, and it would have been the far side umpire that should have called it.
Shoots a goal, puts another vehicle. And the ball goes right down the middle. Chrissy comes up with it. She's going to look for an opening. She's going to hope for Stephanie to take a player, make an opening for it. A good two just hesitates the opponent. That's what Stephanie is doing. That's all you need is the hesitation. And Chrissy puts it out there for Heather. And now that one in front again, just Heather couldn't get to it in time. Livy comes up with it. Livy's an amazing player. Look at her. She makes a nice out. Can't handle it. Try it again. Nice. She comes up with it. Looking for Lyric. And it's usually going to be in a horse race. And she takes another shot. She likes it.
So now we'll watch that play and then stop it when I see a problem. And I think I see a problem. I think the black team is on the blue side. The black team is on the blue side first. And since it wasn't called when the black player stepped over, now the blue player has also stepped over to the black side. Both of those, should have only been one of them should have been called. The first one should have ended that play, but both were the responsibility of the far side umpire.
And the ball goes right down the middle. Chrissy comes up with it. She's going to look for an opening. She's going to hope for Stephanie to take a player, make an opening for it. A good two just hesitates.
Okay, the ball carrier, the blue player, pulled across the back of a horse there, which would have been a penalty against the blue, and it would have been the trailing umpire that should have called that, and that would be the far side umpire.
Takes the opponent.
The blue number 2 came in from the right side and crossed her own blue player without clearance. That would also have been the trailing umpire's responsibility to call, and the trailing umpire would be the far side umpire.
That's what Stephanie is doing. That's all you need is the hesitation. And Chrissy puts it out there for Heather. And now that one in front again, just Heather couldn't get to it in time. Livy comes up with it. Livy's an amazing player. Look at her. She makes a nice out. Can't handle it. Try it again. Nice. She comes up with it. Looking for Lyric. And it's usually going to be in a horse race. And she takes another shot. She likes it. Good throw, brother. Good mistake. Ball goes up in the middle. Stephanie Shuttles comes up with it. Gets some good wood. Stephanie's looking for her number 1, Heather. They're going to see if they can make a completion this time. All the way to the end. Heather calls for it. Heather catches it. She turns that nice little pony there. She was thinking about taking a shot, but Livy jumps out in front. Heather's taking a side shot, and that looks nicely today. Good throw, brother. Good mistake. Ball goes up in the middle. Stephanie Shuttles comes up with it.
Actually, 2 players
Gets
there
some good.
didn't stop it. But then right after that, the blue player, the black player that the blue number 1 is coming up on, the black player had continued forward, and the blue player checks up to go around to the round behind without clearance. This would be a crossing on the blue, and those were the players farthest down the field. So it would have been the leading umpire's responsibility to call, and the leading umpire would be the near side umpire.
Good. Stephanie's looking for her number one, Heather. They're going to see if they can make a completion this time. All the way to the end. Heather calls for it. Heather catches it. She turns that nice little pony there.
Okay, I just thought this was interesting. I couldn't figure out what that black 3 was doing, but it looks like he hit the blue player's horse on the nose for some reason, and you can stop it and see that the racket should have made contact. You can see the nose on both sides of the racket, and if that the player did actually hit the other horse with the racket, of course that'd be a penalty, and it would be against the near side umpire, but it would not be a dangerous penalty. It would be a 5-point deduction for the umpire.
She was thinking about taking a shot, but Livy jumps out in front. Heather's taking a side shot, and if you wouldn't mind just picking it up and finding a trash can, we'll try to keep this place as clean as possible. Pole Jacks were gracious enough to let us play here this weekend again. Ball goes way out the back. Livy comes up with it. Bounced right into her racket. That was beautiful. Livy's going to start looking for her one to get open. She's just trying to get a opening. Chukka, chukka, chukka. As you're walking around and they just happen to see some trash on the ground, if you wouldn't mind just picking it up and finding a trash can, we'll try to keep this place as clean as possible.
Problems. And it looks like the black 3 has stepped across to the blue side's line. That would have been the far side umpire's responsibility to see and call.
Pole Jacks were gracious enough to let us play here.
And once again, the black 3 has stepped to the other team's side before the ball left the umpire's hand.
This weekend again. Ball goes way out the back. Livy comes up with it. Bounced right into her racket.
And here, the blue number 2 is switching sides and doesn't have clearance. That would be a penalty against the blue team. The play is going to the left side of the field, and so the far side umpire should be watching the player that's farthest downfield and anybody near it. So this would be the near side or the trailing umpire's responsibility to see and call that one.
That was beautiful. Livy's going to start looking for her one to get open. She's just trying to get a opening. Chukka, chukka, chukka.
Here's how the scoring went in my book. In this 1 6-minute chukka, I counted 8 missed crossing calls for the near umpire, 4 missed crossing calls for the far umpire, 2 missed other calls for the near umpire, and 6 missed other calls for the far umpire, and I didn't count any that the umpires called incorrectly. System with a 1 6-minute chukka game only allows the umpires 19 points to start with. So if they missed 2 crossings, they would be negative numbers. Both these umpires were in the negative numbers. The near side umpire was negative 71 and the far side umpire was negative 51. But if anybody would do this on a regular basis and keep score of the umpires, we would have a number grade or score, strength score, to how strong or how correct umpires umpire games. So anyhow, that's the way my system goes. It's set up to start with 100 points for a 4-chukka 8-minute game, and deduct 10 for a missed dangerous call like a crossing, and deduct 5 for a missed non-dangerous call, or deduct 5 points when a call is made and it's made incorrectly.